Hey guys, Jane here, and today I'm doing a review of The Handmaid's Tale. Now, this is not my first read. I absolutely love this book. It was a favorite then, and it is still a favorite now. It's a 5 out of 5 for me, in case anybody was curious. But I absolutely love this book, and I think it's a really important read. This book follows a handmaid named Offred. It's probably of Fred, but it's spelt kind of like Offred. And I actually think that is more appropriate of a name, kind of with a double meaning. So it is of Fred, but it is also offered, like an offering. But that's neither here nor there. Offred is a handmaid in the Republic of Gilead. So the Republic of Gilead is a religious dystopian society, basically. And Offred, we don't ever find out what her real name is, was a woman who was previously married and her husband was divorced. So because she is married to someone who is divorced, her marriage is no longer valid under the Republic of Gilead. Her husband is probably killed. We don't know for sure what happened to him, but she is absolutely separated from him. Her daughter is taken away from her, and she is sent to be a handmaid who, these are women who are of reproductive age, who have had children, or who are likely still able to have children, and they are given to the wealthy couples to make babies for them. They use the example of the biblical wives of Jacob, I believe Rachel, saying, this is my handmaid, go to her so I can have a child by her. This book starts when Offred is brought to, shortly after Offred is brought to the house of Fred, Commander Fred, to try to have a baby by him. And I believe this is her second or third placement, but she's running out of placements. Soon she will be sent to the colonies if she doesn't manage to make a baby, because she's a sinful woman and obviously she's not doing her job by having babies. And this story is just about her experience as a handmaid and kind of gives you a very limited look at the Republic of Gilead. I did choose to do a reread right now because I wanted to read Testaments, and I just started Testaments, and oh my gosh, it's good, which is kind of the follow-up book to this. Now, Testaments is a little broader because we are reading from 3 characters' perspectives. With this, we are reading just one. So we really get a feel for the world through the eyes of a handmaid in this one. In Testaments, we are looking through the world from a few other characters' perspectives and seeing how they view the world and getting some more information that isn't available to Offred. Offred, because of her position in the world, didn't really have a lot to say about how the Republic of Gilead came to be. She has some ideas and hints and things she saw in the news, but there's a lot that she has limited knowledge of. Just like if this was to happen in our world, she knows that there was a terrorist attack and that Congress was killed, and that suddenly there was kind of a martial law thing for a while. The people were like, we're going to do this, we're going to get Congress back and stuff, but until then, we are doing it this way and to protect everybody until we can get Congress reelected. And then Congress is never reelected, and this religious regime takes over. It is partially influenced by problems with pollution, problems with fertility, all kinds of stuff. So we do see little hints of that, but like most of us would be in her situation, she doesn't have a great understanding of why this happened or how it happened. She just sees how it's affecting her. One day she goes to pay for a pack of cigarettes and her money doesn't work because her money now belongs to her husband. Then, bad things are happening, and yeah. So we do get a very limited idea of the world. And it is told in first person. Some people don't jive with the writing. I think the writing is pretty stream of consciousness, and it's meant to be. It is Offred's story. It is very much meant to, we're even told later on, that it is her recording of the events as she remembers them, as her thoughts are on the situation. And I think the writing reflects that. It can be a little difficult. It's not real pretty. Sometimes it is a little bit difficult to read, but I still enjoyed it. And again, it's very much in Offred's voice, and I think that's fine. We are warned at the end that this narrative may not be entirely accurate. So there are things that maybe we might have questions about that, again, either Offred wasn't aware of, or since this is her memories, it may not be clear. Or we're also told that possibly something was lost in translation because we're told that something might have been lost in translation because, we're hearing this at a historical time outside of Gilead, and we are not in Gilead, so it's possible that there's some stuff that isn't clear. But I do love this. I think the world building is amazing, even though we are limited to Offred's point of view. I think so much of this is so important and valid, especially as we are talking about women's rights, minority rights, freedom of religion, but not having a religious state, a secular government, some of the concerns for when a real strict religion takes over. This especially is very poignant to me. I was raised in a really strict religion that had in its history some of the things that show up here. And it really stuck with me. It really stuck with me, some of the realities that Offred faced, that people who were part of the religion I was raised in at the start of that religion probably faced too. And the complexities of any religion or any regime. One thing that the commander says to Offred at one point is something about anything that makes things better for some people isn't going to make things better for everybody. So even though he's kind of telling Offred that even though she is suffering and her position is awful, the majority of people, at least in his opinion, are going to be better off. And I can totally see why they think that. They believe they have created a moral society, a safe society, a society where women don't have to be afraid of being raped, they think. I mean, the handmaids are kind of being raped, but, not in their view. Women are held to a much higher standard. Their virtue is more protected. It again is a much more, quote, moral society. We're saving souls. And again, having been raised super, super religious, so much of this is stuff that is like one or two steps away from things that I could very highly relate to. And as a matter of fact, my best friend, Christina, is also reading the Testaments with me. We're not doing a buddy read per se, but we're both reading it. And one of the things she's mentioned is sometimes she has to stop and take a breather because she also was raised in a very religious family, the same religion mine was, and some of the stuff just hits so close to home that it's just like, oh, it's just like a gut punch. So I do think that this book should be required reading for high school. I think dystopians, a lot of them are important, and I wish we read more dystopians in high school. I definitely wouldn't want to give this to a young child, but like a sophomore, a junior maybe, a sophomore certainly, a sophomore maybe, a junior certainly, and a senior certainly. I do think this would be great required reading in high school. I think every woman who is at least 16 should probably read this book. And as a matter of fact, my daughter asked me what the book's about, and I said, well, it's about some complicated stuff. You're too young for it right now, but when you're 16 or so, I'm going to make you read it. So, and she's all excited. She's like, why can't I read it now? And she couldn't read it now, even if she wanted to. She's 8, but I told her there's, some adult content in it. And there's adult content in this book, so don't give it to your 8-year-old. However, this is something that I think all women need to read, and probably everybody, because this is kind of the when you have a tyrannical state, and it does kind of, I hesitate to say this, remind me of some of the things that happen in other countries and the limitations placed on people. I have a friend who lives in Pakistan, and some of the things that she has told me about her life there kind of reminds me to a lesser extent of some of the stuff that happens in The Handmaid's Tale. And it made me, it gave me pause and made me think that some of the stuff is happening in the world. Now, obviously, Pakistan is nothing like the Republic of Gilead. They have a lot more freedom, but it's still very much a religious state there. And so many things she can't understand about our culture and our world because it doesn't exist. And that's the same way in the Republic of Gilead. And one thing that is mentioned by Offred, and I think is really important in this book, and it's coming out in the Testaments too, but this one in particular is Offred is part of the first generation. So the hope is that this new religious conservative society, number one, will get all the bugs worked out, but also two, the kids that are growing up, the children who are born and are very young during the beginning of the Republic of Gilead, by the time they're adults, this will be their normal. And Offred is just having trouble adjusting because she knows what the normal was like. And when we get to the Testaments, there is a lot of commentary from two characters who were born right before or shortly after the Republic of Gilead was established. And so we get to see what a normal child thinks of Gilead and kind of what Gilead is an idealized place, but the problem is humans don't do well in idealized place because a lot of places probably think, well, this is great. We have a place where women are safe, we're trying to deal with the pollution problem. We have groups of people going and cleaning up pollution. We have all of these really positive things, but taken to the 9th degree, and it's not great for anybody, for the lesser people in society. It's not great for the handmaids. It's not great for the econo wives, which are the poor wives. And I will say that's one thing I would have liked to see more of. I haven't seen anything in Testaments yet about the econo wives, really. The econo wives are like the poorer man's wives. And I would like to know more about that. I would have loved to have a perspective of an econo wife and a Martha, because I'm still not entirely clear either on like how the Marthas are chosen. So, but I feel like I'm getting off topic. I'm so sorry. I love the world. I think this is a great book. I think everybody should read it. I will warn anybody that the ending is a little bit unclear. And by unclear, we are given some hints about what happens, but we never fully learn. We never fully learn how Offred's story ends. Now, I don't generally like ambiguous endings. It was fine for this, though. It didn't bother me in this, but if you hate ambiguous endings, that might really frustrate you in this book. And I get the feeling with Testaments that we're not going to learn the rest of Offred's story. And I think we have to be okay with that. And I think because this is meant to be a narrative from a character in time, in a piece of time, that's realistic. When we read historical accounts of things, often we don't ever know how the story ended. We might find out that a person died at this point in time, but we may never know. We may never know what happened to that character, if they survived the regime, if they didn't, if they, we just don't know unless it is documented. And in many cases, like in the Republic of Gilead, it's probably not documented. And I recently was watching a book Olive, and she was talking about a book about the Gulag, and she said that was kind of one of the challenges with the history of the Gulag, is that so many people died and their records weren't good, so the histories and stuff from some of the people who were in the Gulag, you never really found out what happened to them. So that this is a very realistic, a potentially realistic fiction story. So we've had these horrors before, and I think that was one of the things that I don't know if it was mentioned in this book or if it was something that I've just heard Margaret Atwood say, because as I said, I've been a fan of this for a long time, is that almost everything in this book has happened in one form or another. She's not making any reaches and going like, oh, well, this could potentially happen if the world was really bad. No. Most of this has happened before, one way or another, in regimes, in society. It's scary real, and in our current time and current political environment, we should be aware. And this is a book, like I said, everybody should read, if nothing else, to open your eyes to some of the dangers of a religious society and a society that doesn't have the separation of church and state. And also it's interesting because the wife of Fred, Commander Fred, his wife, she was one of the people who really fought for the regime. And funny enough, her life is not so great after the regime is in place either. So I think we have to be really careful sometimes, because people imagine that regimes like this will be one way, but sometimes when you're in it, it's not always so great. And the wife, Serena Joy, I think realizes that. I mean, now she has a handmaid who she is not happy about the situation of her husband having to sleep with this other girl to have a baby. You know, her days have gone from being very politically minded and politically active to being basically sitting around doing nothing because there's nothing to do, because she's a wife and so she's up on this high pedestal. Your job is just to manage a household, but you've got Martha's to do the housework, you've got a handmaid to have the babies, you have nothing to do. So, you know, Serena Joy, I think she thought her life was going to be a lot different than it is. And I think the TV show really explores Serena Joy a lot more. I haven't gotten too far in the TV show, but I would have loved to see a book from Serena Joy's perspective, particularly like what she fought for and how she got to where she was. And that stuff is kind of barely glossed over because Serena Joy and Offred don't talk much. They don't have a reason to. But it would be nice to know kind of where Serena Joy fit into the creation of the Republic of Gilead, because at the end of things, she doesn't seem like she's loving her place in it. And I think that can happen a lot. You have a lot of societies where these seem like ideals until you have to live them, and then they kind of suck. So I've rambled about this long enough. Handmaid's Tale is great. I love it. Every girl should read it. Probably every boy too, but every girl, absolutely. If you have a comment about The Handmaid's Tale or other dystopian books that I should read, because I love dystopian when I understand it. Dystopian to me can be kind of rough. A lot of the classic stuff I don't love, and I don't love so much the stuff that gets really complicated. Like, I didn't love Ender's Game, and that's kind of sci-fi dystopian. So, but stuff like this, if you can recommend anything like this, I really would appreciate that. Always looking for recommendations of what to read next. If you've enjoyed this, please like. If you have not yet subscribed and would like more content, please subscribe. Also, my social media is below if you would like to connect with me. Included in those links below are links to my books that I have written. I have written a dystopian society that has been compared to The Handmaid's Tale. It is nothing like The Handmaid's Tale, but it is a religious society in the future, and that would be Educating Autumn. So if you like books that are about dystopians, you might want to check out mine. It is available on Amazon, Smashwords, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, basically anywhere books are sold. It is a romance in a dystopian society, and the society does have some similarities to Gilead, that women are not allowed to read, they're not allowed to go to school, they're treated like wombs, and a lot of their value is from their womb, and it is a religious-based society, but it is not religious from like a biblical perspective. So if you like dystopian, you might want to check my book out. Also, in general, if you enjoy romances, historical romances particularly, that have a little bit of paranormal and magic, I have some books on Kindle Unlimited. When you read my books, buy my books, it helps me to continue this channel. It helps me pay my bills and allows me to have the time to read and do the other things I do to create content. So thank you, and this is Jane. I'll see you next time. Bye.